Welcome back to the ETF Inspector. It's Thursday, October 9th, just before 8 o'clock at night, and this is our daily recap video for our YieldMax weekly paying funds, ULTY, the Ultra Option Income Strategy Fund, SLTY, the Ultra Short Option Income Strategy Fund, and LFGY, the Crypto Industry Option Income Fund. A reminder, I'm on X at ETF_Inspector1. I post all things related to the videos I put out, including the premiere times. I actually had somebody complain today that they missed the premiere because they just have notifications turned on YouTube and aren't on X. For some reason, X gets it out quicker than the automatic one that comes out from YouTube. Other thing I wanted to point out was the announcement that was made yesterday by YieldMax about they're transitioning the quote unquote monthlies to weeklies. So the target 12 funds will stay monthly or every 4 weeks, but all the other individual income funds and things like that are moving to weekly starting next week. And these that were already weekly are going to actually shift backwards a day. So we're going to announce on Tuesday, go X on Wednesday, and pay on Thursday. So that's a little difference now. And if you have weeklies and previously monthlies, now you're going to be getting paid on Thursdays and Fridays from YieldMax. So let's go ahead and take a look at how the market performed today. It was kind of a odd day, I believe, but ULTY finishing up a penny, so nothing real major move, but that's okay. It was X day, so technically it's going to look like a big drop, but ULTY didn't drop. ULTY paid you that difference right there. Same thing with all of them. So it's always nice to at least get back a penny on the very first day. LFGY, they weren't stressing at all, up over 1%. What's that, 38 cents? So that's a good portion of that 51.02 cent distribution on the very first day. And SLTY, well, SLTY's just being salty. Down 0.44%, so that along with the distribution, not a pretty day. And we'll go ahead and take a look at our charts to see the individuals and how they moved. We'll start with the trades though. ULTY, call it, I don't know, should we say it's definitely taking profits on Rocket Lab. So they sold a portion of their shares, not a major percentage. 66. I sold them at like 20 or 21. So they took some profits on Rocket Lab, 66.49. Got a good price for it, and then started closing and rolling some options to next week. So first off, Lululemon is just a put spread. They don't own any shares. This one actually cost them to roll, so it dropped below their sold strike on their puts. So I think this is the first failed put spread in a few weeks. I could be wrong though. MicroStrategy brought in 1.3 million, closing and rolling to next week. Pony AI brought in 800,000 on the close and roll to next week. Excuse me. Quantum Computing had a credit of 2.4 million rolling to next week. Rigetti cost them 10.7 million on the roll to next week, so that one hurt. Had to adjust their strikes from 37.50 all the way up to 50. Here's another one. When I looked at buying them, they were $14 a share, and I chose not to. Now they're all the way up in the 40s. Okay, I get a drink. Rocket Lab cost 10.8 million to close and roll to next week. And Upstart brought in a credit of 1.5 million on the roll to next week. My dog is wanting to be part of this video. If you watch the interview video with Mike Coe, you get to see him poke his head in the side of the frame. But whenever I'm over here talking, he just likes to keep hopping up on my arm and getting attention. All right. Oh, I didn't total it up for you. So that came out to a $16 million loss or debit on the options trading side of things. It's going to basically even out with about a $16 million increase in the overall value of the shares. So that's going to make sense why the fund was pretty much flat, up a penny. Affirm was up 2.9%. These are still in play for tomorrow. $80 calls are 3.2% out of the money. $66 puts sold to help pay for the protective puts are almost 15% out. Bullish was down 1%. They've got 69s and 70s sold as far as calls. Everything's pretty much a collar strategy with a few put spreads in here. Sometimes they'll actually sell puts along with that collar strategy to help pay for the protective puts. So the 69s and 70s expiring tomorrow are 3.4 and 4.9% out. Bitmine Immersion, they are expiring tomorrow, still in play for this week. Down 1.4%, made their 59s 0.25% in the money, and their 61s 3% out of the money. Then we have Centene Corp. This is just a put spread, and they are in the money going into tomorrow. Sold puts at 39 or 3% in the money, so we need that one to go up at least 3% tomorrow. Coinbase was down a fraction, 27 cents on a almost $400 stock. Calls are in the money expiring tomorrow. 380s and 385s, 1.8 and 0.5% in the money. But as you can see, that was what they would have cost yesterday to close out. So they will have dropped throughout today, and they'll drop some more into the beginning of tomorrow unless coin takes off. CoreWeave was up 2.2%. They've got calls at 139 and 143 expiring tomorrow, both in the money, just barely 0.06 and 2.8%. So those 143s are only 8 cents in the money. So if they made it all the way to the end of tomorrow, at that point, this would drop all the way down to 8 cents or so, which would obviously greatly decrease the cost to close them out. As far as government obligation funds, $634 million. Total that with the cash, negative $24 million, and right around a little over $610 million. Figma down 4.4%, brought the 70s out of the money by 3%. They've already been rolled the next week along with the others. 75s are 10% out. Galaxy Digital, one of the put spreads with no shares. This has already been rolled the next week, and next week's is already looking good. 6% out of the money on those $39 short puts. Hims and Hers was up 0.15%. They've got 58s, 59s, and 60s all sold expiring tomorrow. 0.5% in the money, and then 1.2 and roughly 3% out of the money. Again, those in the money calls are only 26 cents in, so they will drastically decrease in the cost to close them out. Robinhood was up a little over 1%. 148s expiring tomorrow are 2.9% in the money, and 152.50s are practically right at the money. Lucid Group down 3.6, call it 3.7%. 23.50s already rolled to next week are 8% out of the money. Lululemon, the put spread we talked about it. They closed and rolled them, took the loss. Material Corp up almost 2.5%, sitting just about perfect. 73s are 0.9% out of the money expiring tomorrow. Strategy was down over 3%. They closed the rest of the positions for this week. Next week's 342.50s are 6.9% out of the money. Open Door down 4+%, $9 calls expiring tomorrow are 10.5% out. I sold a put spread on them today. Palantir Technology was up over 1%. Took their 182.50s further in the money to 1.5%, and took their 185s just barely into the money by 0.25%. Still in play for tomorrow. Pony AI was the big loser, down 5.2% today. The only thing they did was they closed out all 10,000 of the puts, and then only 10,000 of the 30,000 calls at 24. So they still have 20,000 left at 7.9% out. Quantum computing up 2.4%. $20 calls are still in play, 6% in the money. They rolled the 2250s out to next week, and they already have others out to next week, 5.5% and 7.8% out of the money. Rigetti was the big winner, up almost 9%. Unfortunately, these 3750s were already in the money, so we wouldn't have gotten to capture any of that. 43s were practically at the money, so they went 8.7% into the money. The only thing we can look at is at what price, well, what kind of range they paid to close these out to see how they made out. Let's see. So they paid $10.27 to close them out. Yeah, they didn't really get to capture too much upside. Rocket Lab was up 1.7%. This one's goofy. The other day they closed out all but one contract at these 46s. But they got $62 calls that they closed and rolled, took the loss on, and 70s that have already been rolled to next week, 5.4% out. Rocket Company's up 0.25%. 1750s are 7.5% out. They also sold $14 puts to help pay for the $15 puts. They're almost 14% out of the money. Sorry, trying to pick up the speed. I feel like I'm dragging the anchor. 6.3% increase on New Scale Power today. They've got 4250s calls and $33 puts expiring this week, and 18+% out of the money. They've also already rolled to next week some 4050s with $30 puts sold. The 4050s are 1/3% in the money. The puts are nowhere close. Soundhound down 1.5%. 19s and 1950s expiring tomorrow are 2.25% and just about 5% out. Symbotic down almost 2.5%, still in the money on those 64s expiring tomorrow by 4.6%. 69s are 2.7% out. And finally, Upstart was up 1.1%, and they closed and rolled all positions. So that resulted in a $16.4 million increase in the value of the shares. So that's not the overall change in the market value, because every single option will have increased or decreased in its value / cost to close out, which also plays into it. So we don't have all those numbers. We don't get them until the late night download comes out. So that's why our assets under management here, our net assets, is as of the start of the day, just about 3.4 million or 3.4 billion. Yesterday, people bought into the fund, so they must have been happy with the performance and the announcement on the payout. So 10 million plus new shares, bringing it up over 621 million outstanding shares. The NAV at the start of the day, 545, closing price 547, and that 545 already had the the distribution baked into it. Last time was 9.13. We're getting 9.04 tomorrow, so long as you had the shares today and had purchased them prior to today. All right, that's everything for ULTY. Next, we'll go to LFGY. We'll spend a little less time on these as they're not quite as popular. So we're rolling Coin to next week, Coinbase. No shares of anything changed, just options. That brought in 222,000. iShares Ethereum Trust ETF rolled in next week. Turned it in from just a sold calls to a call spread. Same thing with Coin. So $106,000 collected there. GameStop, this is just a standard close and roll to next week, $65,000 credit. And MBTX, same thing, closing and rolling to next week, brought in $227,000 for an overall increase or credit of $621,000 on the options trading for LFGY. When we take a look at the underlyings within the fund, Bitmine Immersions down 1.4%. Their calls expiring tomorrow at 59 are still just barely in the money by 16 cents. So they will decrease nicely. BitDeer Technology up 2.8%, took the $20 calls into the money by 2.5%. CleanSpark was up 5.85%. They're the big winner here in LFGY. $21 calls expiring tomorrow are still 4.5% out, so they got to capture all of that. Coinbase down a fraction, 27 cents. They took the win, closed them and rolled them. Core Scientific up 2.9%. 19s expiring tomorrow are 5.3% out of the money. And they also have 18s that have already been rolled the next week. They're in the money by 0.2%. Circle Internet Group down a fraction, or up a fraction, 2 cents. 165s expiring tomorrow are almost 10% out of the money. iShares Ethereum Trust ETF down almost 4%. They're the big loser over here in LFGY. They closed those options out for a win and rolled them. Government obligation funds, 3.8 million. I'm guessing it's going to be negative down here. Yeah, 3.2 negative. So there's $500,000 to $600,000 of what do you want to call it? Dry powder. Galaxy Digital up over 2% today. Unfortunately, they were already in the money and went further on those 40s, so we didn't really get to capture any of that increase. Still 5% in the money. GameStop down 1.5%. These were oddly set up just because of the one in there, because the higher ones are already rolled the next week, and in this case the lower ones were from this week, already rolled the next week, still in play this week until today they rolled them. So the calls that have been rolled the next week at 25 are 4% out. Robinhood Markets up 1+%, still 1.6% out on the 155s expiring tomorrow, so they're landing just about perfect. Hut 8 Corp up almost 4%, took their $45 calls into the money by almost 3%. iShares Bitcoin Trust ETF, IBIT down 1.8%, so that hurt. No options, just a change in market value. Mara was flat on the day, so their options remained 1.5% out, and that just means that the option cost to close will have just decayed away. At the time value, it lost it. Probably half, right? So it's probably about 22, 23 cents now. Because at the end of yesterday, there was 2 full days left. So now that we're at the end of today, a full day, 50% of the time value decayed away. MBTX, they closed and rolled this call spread, but they still have this put spread out to the end of the year. This is a debit put spread, so they bought the 255s trying to make money. Unfortunately, they're almost 11% out of the money. Mercado Libre was up big, 4.3%, bringing those calls real close. 2290s are now 2/3% out of the money. That's a perfect landing spot, though. We'll be able to close them for a win so long as they don't jump past that 2290. Close them for a win, roll to next week, collecting a nice profit and picking a higher strike. Strategy down 3.1%. They've got calls already rolled to next week at 342.50 that are just about 7% out of the money. NU Holdings still in play for this week with the 1550s. They dropped 0.5% today, and they're only 0.8% out of the money. NVIDIA Corp was up almost 1.8%. Unfortunately, that took them 1.3% in the money on those 190s. They expire tomorrow, and they are rough. They're $2.50 in the money right now, so they're at a minimum $2.50 plus extrinsic value. Opera was up 0.25%. $20 calls expiring next Friday are 18% out of the money. PayPal was down 0.5%. That actually helped them to line up to win this trade. 76s are now 1/3% out of the money, or 25 cents. That's kind of a perfect landing spot for it. Riot Platforms up 1.3%, took the 22s into the money by 1.2%, and Block was down 1/3%, and they are still in the money by 1%, or 87 cents. So either way, that's going to drop. And overall, that's how you had a $1.3 million increase to the value of the shares within the fund. At the start of the day, assets under management, $214 million. People bought into this fund yesterday. Money came in, adding 75,000 shares to the outstanding shares, bringing them up to 5,675,000. NAV at the start of the day, 37.79. So that already has the distribution baked into it, and they increased throughout the day to 38.19. Last week's was 43.44. This week is 51.02. I don't think I have any updated. I don't have anything updated on blocks. All right, and finally, SLTY. We keep going to all-time highs. People think maybe it's time to start shorting things, and it just keeps going. But SLTY added 2 funds to the mix by shorting shares of Advanced Micro Devices, AMD, and also shorting shares of AST Space Mobile, which is ASTS. Then they were closing and rolling positions in Astera Labs, bringing in 36,000. They started their reverse collar strategy, so it's basically just like ULTY, but the opposite. Instead of buying shares, they sell short the shares, and then instead of buying protective puts, they buy protective calls, as you can see, and then to generate income, they sell puts, but sometimes they will sell calls to help pay for the protective puts or the protective calls because that insurance policy gets a little pricey. So AMD and ASTS, with starting the new position, collected $11,000 and $12,000 on their options. Circle Internet Group rolling to next week, $22,000 credit. Same thing with Duolingo, $18,000 credit. Same thing with all of them. Iron, $150,000 credit, so that's a nice one. KTOS, I can't remember what the K stands for. It's a defense, what is it? Kratos, $26,000 credit, and RH is the only one that cost them to close and roll, $64,000 debit. So that means the shares of RH have been dropping. So overall, they had a $214,000 trading surplus or credit as far as that goes, to go along with a $100,000 decrease in the value of the shares. So it is actually surprising that they went down, but it's hard to say. If they brought in 200,000 and only dropped by 100,000, they should have been up. Maybe that's why they were up in the after hours, but it can't be certain. Yeah, up 0.8. All right, when we take a look at how they performed, Astera was up 2.7%. That's bad if you shorted the shares. They rolled everything. Bloom Energy still in play for tomorrow, down 1%, still 5% out on their 82s. These are puts now that we're talking about. BitDeer Technology up 2.8%, still in play for tomorrow. 1850 puts are almost 10% out, and the 2150 calls that were sold are 4.8% out. Circle Internet Group only changed by 2 cents. They closed and rolled everything. Duolingo was down almost 3%, so that worked out well for them. Everything closed and rolled. Enphase Energy up almost 1.9%. Puts sold at 35.50 are still 3.3% out, and calls sold at 44.50 are 21% out. We don't pay as much attention to what we would call dry powder over here because you shorted all the shares, so you don't actually own any shares. You have negative, and you got to put money towards it. That's why all this money's up here sitting in treasuries. GitLab down 1%. 45.50 puts expiring tomorrow are just about 3% out, and $55 calls are 17% out. Iron was up 6.2%. That hurts. They closed and rolled everything. Kratos Defense and Security up 6.7 or down 6.7, so that one helped kind of offset Iron. Even with the big drop, they were still able to capture all of that and win their trade on the closeout. Lemonade down 3.6%. $51 puts are 4.6% out of the money. $63 sold calls are almost 18% out. Nebius Group was the biggest increaser, but that's a bad thing over here. That's why it hurt the value so much, up 8.7%. Their $118 puts are 11% out, and their $150 calls sold are 13% out of the money. RH was the biggest loser, down 7% today, so that increased the value, but unfortunately their puts were already in the money and went further, so they didn't get to appreciate or capture any of that drop when they closed and rolled. Tesla was down 0.7%. Their $430 puts are 1.2% out, expiring tomorrow, and $495 calls are 13.6% out. That's how you had a $100,000 decrease in the overall, or in the value of the underlying shares. There's $15.7 million in assets under management, 400,000 outstanding shares. NAV at the start of the day, 39.30, and then it dropped some to 39.17. Feel like this video took forever. Looking down at the time though, it is kind of right on par, so maybe it's just me. So that's all I have for you. I appreciate you watching. I've got a dad joke for you. Hopefully you don't remember it, because I recognize it. It's definitely one that I've told before. It must have been on a day where I tried to come up with multiple, but now it's coming up on my dad joke of the day calendar. So I'll just tell it again. Maybe we got some new people here. So thank you for watching. Appreciate all the likes, shares, comments, all the support, you guys. Even all the chatting in the live chat. That's cool too. So try to give you a little reward. A dad joke of the day. What do you call a teacher who refuses to fart in public? A private tutor. Still funny, even though I told it recently. All right. Have a good night. Good luck trading tomorrow. Don't forget to close and roll, or whatever you got to do, your positions. Tomorrow's the last day of the week. If you have anything expiring tomorrow, just don't get caught off guard. I'll catch you in the next video.